Chuck Prophet, welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be here, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, it's so fun because when you make a new record and we get a chance to kind of dive in, I get a sense of your appreciation for the way songs are made, the structure of them, the way the pieces and parts fit together. And I'm trying to imagine, I was talking with Tim from Strand of Oaks about his teenage music listening days, being in the basement, just kind of diving in. And I wonder if there was a time when you started thinking about the way songs were put together as a kid.
Well, I mean, it's sort of the curse of the self-educated. I wasn't in school band or anything, and I think that it was really, records were really my education.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wanted to climb inside them and figure out, you know, stick my hands in the speakers and figure out how they worked. And really, when I think about it now, you know, it was the Clash that turned me on to reggae music, and it was, you know, the Clash that brought Joe Ely on tour, right. You know, it was through Townes Van Zandt and the Texas Songwriters, and then back through Lightning Hopkins or whatever. And I think that it was, you know, that's where I kind of got my education.
Right.
And even filmmakers, and what's Paris, Texas? Oh, he's a German filmmaker, Wim Wenders, and this Rykuder record, you know. And so, yeah, that's...
It's funny because now people have Google, you know, and they have YouTube, and sometimes if you pull up a video of some, oh, look, you know, Lightning Hopkins, you'll pull up Lightning Hopkins, and then over on the side there's this other stuff that's kind of like, oh, there's Townes Van Zandt that's connected to Lightning Hopkins. But in the day, pre-internet, you really had your record shop was kind of where you went to find those connecting dots, right?
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, there's...
liner notes sometimes.
Well, and there's the poetry of it. If you bought the record, you know, you want to crack the code. And some poetry has high resistance for people, and people don't like it, you know. It's like, they don't like it. It's not, you know, it's hard for them to penetrate. And you know, I mean, I would just stare at the record going around and try to figure it out. And, you know, that's just part of my wasted, misspent youth.
Yeah.
You know? And I play great pool, and I skateboard, and... surf too. So.
That sounds like more productive than Tim from Strand of Oaks. It was just in his basement the whole time.
No, that's pretty sad.
And what about the British invasion stuff? Did that, you know, come to you? The Beatles and other sort of you know, English bands in that pop music thing. Did that song structure and song? Because I hear things that are reminiscent of that era of popular music sometimes in your songs.
Well, I mean, personally, I tend to go back to the stuff that I listened to as a teenager. That's the stuff that I return to.
Right.
So yeah, my sister had like David Bowie records and Mott the Hoople records, and
did you have a Mott the Hoople moment last night?
Absolutely, yeah. I ended up playing with Ian Hunter last night in San Francisco, and it's kind of a big deal for Prophet, yeah. Yeah.
Did you ask about like old clubs and stuff like that? And
well, we did. We touched a little bit on, you know, I had heard that he had learned to play piano in Hamburg, you know, in the 60s, and I said, I think you were in Hamburg. He goes, yeah, we were in Hamburg on the last tour. I said, no, I mean in Hamburg, you know.
Yeah.
Back in the day with the Beatles. He said, well, the Beatles were there in 63. I was there in 65. And yeah, and he had that experience of playing, you know, 8 hours on stage.
Right.
And
get your 10,000 hours pretty quick that way.
Yeah. And you can hear it in the music.
Yeah. So your new CD is called Night Surfer.
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as a night surfer? Do people surf at night?
Yeah, I used to surf the Huntington Pier at night.
Wow.
Yeah. I think in the summer when I was 14, I got mono, and then my friends would pick me up at like 11:30. Because we had a friend that worked the graveyard shift somewhere in Costa Mesa, and I don't know, and they would drop us off at the pier, and we'd surf all night and come home at 8. Where were the parents?
Yeah.
I don't know. But you could surf under the lights of the pier.
Oh, okay, so there was some lights.
Yeah, and you can beat the crowds a little bit that way.
Right.
And so we did it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I had a song called Night Surfing, and I just like titles when they assert themselves. You know, I don't go looking for them. I like when they just float to the top. So it just floated to the top. This title, Night Surfer.
It made me nervous.
The song got discarded. You know?
Yeah. The concept made me nervous when I just heard the record title. It's like,
sounds good.
Yeah, Night Surfer.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It elicited emotion anyway. And then I was just, the other thing I was mentioning as you were coming out was just that, people do tend to sort of compare artist to artist, and some people say, oh yeah, Chuck Prophet's like this person or that person, all good people, Randy Newman, Tom Petty, whoever it is. Are there artists that you find yourself being compared to that you actually feel like that's a pretty legit comparison, or that you
well, I mean, I get compared to Petty. I kind of made peace with that. I mean, I look around and I think he's pretty cool,
Yeah.
And
you could have been a Wilbury, sure.
Yeah. And Ray Davies for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, such a great songwriter and such a great chronicler of like the British working class, and always a guy that challenged himself and has continued to write great songs.
Do you ever find out if those kinds of people ever listen to your stuff?
Well, in the case of Ray Davies, yeah, my sources tell me that that he's checked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of the working class, I mean, I think your Let Freedom Ring record was really a lot about trying to make that stand up and say what was obvious, which is that these things need to be addressed. There is income inequality and other things that are going on in our country.
Yeah, I referred to that record as at the time as political songs for non-political people. I'm not really a political animal, but I did write those songs in the summer of 2008, and that was, if you recall, that was when the bottom kind of fell out of the wet sack of the American economy. Right. A lot of people had to start over, and I just had the window open that summer, and it was a rare heat wave for San Francisco.
Right.
So a lot of the songs on that record dealt with that, and then I got this idea where I wanted to go outside the country to record the record, which was another a great idea at the time kind of thing.
When in doubt, go to Mexico.
Yeah, so we went to Mexico City, and we found that it's if you're going there to record, Nick, the power routinely goes out like 8 times a day. You should know that. Nobody told me that. And so and we also 3 days after we arrived, there was the swine flu outbreak, and if you remember what that was like, watching television and how hyped up it was, and we thought maybe we were going to be quarantined and wouldn't be able to come back into the States. And I had a film crew with me, a couple guys, friends of mine. And I was kind of thinking, well, we'd have a great movie,
right?
But the rest of the guys didn't feel that way.
No, of course not. The one thing that I will say, there's a lot of talk about, the music business is changing and the record business is out, it's bottom's falling out and everything's, there's a lot of gnashing of teeth thinking about all this stuff. You are a guy, Chuck, who just seems to just make more art. When in doubt, just make more stuff. Make more art,
Yeah.
Get it out. There's whatever it is.
I mean, I look to people, really making records ultimately is child's play compared to, filmmakers and the kind of money that you're talking about. That's an undertaking, So, I mean, I do have my heroes like John Sayles and who have continued to make cool movies on their own terms. And I do other gigs if I can. I've had some success as a songwriter, and so it's enabled me to make a record every couple of years. And honestly, I'm more prepared these days. I'm, one way or another, making a record takes time. You're either going to be like kind of unprepared and then hope that things are going to happen in the studio, and that can be a long process. Or if you're really prepared and you start thinking of it like a play or something, you can actually record it, take less time to do it. So I'm getting better at it.
Yeah. Well, I've been a fan and obviously following your work for a long time, but it's craftsmanship, and it's really it shows up in the songs. And I'm glad you got a chance to check this place out too. Your first time visiting us here, actually in eTown Hall.
I love what you've done with the place, man. Yeah. I think we need less churches and more gigs, all over the world. You been to the Paradiso in Amsterdam? Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, we're going to get back to music. Welcome back, if you would, Chuck Prophet. Aptly named.